Hello everyone and welcome back to another Minecraft update video. This is Snapshot 21w44a, and if the world behind me looks familiar at all to you, it's because we used the same world in the last update to upgrade to the latest snapshot. I've done that process again, and so the terrain we see in front of us over here has been generated in 21w44a, and this terrain over here was made in 1.17. So what I've been doing is flying around to make some side-by-side comparisons. I've been playing a game of Spot the Difference, trying to see how the world has generated in the newer version, which is on the left side. And it would seem that I haven't found any major differences in generation between the two of them. The only big thing I've noticed is occasionally there'll be a tree on one version that wasn't there on the other, or vice versa. So it doesn't appear there's been any major changes, but even minor ones can have big consequences, as this village has not generated in the latest snapshot. And if you're clueless as to what I'm talking about, it is the biome blending feature for new and old terrain. You can see the shape of the landscape will match up, but there are other problems that don't seem to have been addressed in this snapshot. And something rather important that needs to be communicated is that seed numbers are now permanent until release. This means it's safe for you to start searching for a seed you want to play in the next update, as some of the previous snapshots have changed how the seed number system works. So not much has changed above ground, but in this snapshot the focus is below, as caves are now going to generate in the expanded terrain below bedrock. If you watched the last video, you might remember this cave down here where we came up against a deep slate wall. Well, obviously the cave has generated into the old terrain, but a big glaring problem here is that it's just stone. So I don't know what happened here, how the devs did not notice this, but there are a few other issues as well. For example, that layer of deep slate is basically the very last layer of bedrock at the very bottom of the world, so it's not been removed in the transition into the new terrain down below, which is kind of odd, especially with all of these glowberries hanging off the top of it. If we go lower down in the world to see the very bottom where one layer of bedrock generated last time, you'll see now that it doesn't generate any. We've actually got stone and gravel and even diamond ore generating down here at the bottom of the world. So it's good to see that they've now got the cave generation working in the new extended bottom part of the world for old chunks, because remember, everything we're looking at here was generated in 1.17, but it's still got some issues and kinks that need to be worked out. And this, I guess, is a perfect reminder to make backups of your world if you want to play on these snapshots. They are not yet suitable for playing in a long-term world, so be sure to make your backups when checking these out. There are other new features and changes in this snapshot too. For example, in the options menu we have a new option called online. When you go in here you'll see the realms notification option for on or off is now in this space, and we've got allow server listings. If we read this, it says servers may list online players as part of their public status. With this option off, your name will not show up in such lists, and you can turn this on or off. And if you're wondering what this refers to, some websites can show you who's on the server when you visit it, and I believe this is what it's referring to. Now, if you're actually logged into a server, as I am right now, and you go into the options, you'll see the online button is here. You've got the same options. It also tells you what the server difficulty is set to. And I also have a feeling that you might be able to use that button if you're OP on a server, but since I don't have access to a snapshot server, I guess I can't tell you for now. It also says here on the website that part of this feature is actually a property that can be configured called Hide Online Players. So if this was set to false, that feature might not work at all. It's a little unclear, but if set to true, it will allow players to hide their online status. Now, this snapshot brings with it a change I have seen claimed to be fixed time and time again over the years, and I know about this bug quite well because we've run a data pack on Vanilla Tweaks for the longest time that fixes this issue. It relates to sleeping in a bed and the weather cycle. So this is the issue. When you go and sleep in a bed, regardless of what the weather cycle is currently doing, it will be reset, which means it is very likely it's going to start raining or thundering in about 10 minutes. And the classic thing is that it always seems to rain on multiplayer servers. Well, the reason is there's lots of people playing, and someone's probably always going to be sleeping in the bed, and that resets the weather cycle, meaning that you get rain and thunder quite often. So now in this snapshot, if I were to sleep in this bed, it would not actually touch the weather cycle at all. So if it were going to rain in 10 seconds, then that would happen in 10 seconds when I get out of the bed. The change now is that it's going to reset the weather cycle if it's raining or thundering. So now when you sleep in a bed, it will get reset. This possibly means, though, that it could just start raining again in about 10 minutes. So I'm not entirely sure this is a solution that's going to work. You see, if it gets reset in a way where it means it's just going to start raining again in 10 minutes and then someone goes and sleeps, then it's just going to repeat the process. I guess, though, if you let the rain pass and then sleep, it might not be an issue. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the next update with this one. So another change in this snapshot is related to the simulation distance. This is a feature introduced a couple of snapshots back. The simulation distance has always existed, but it's been tied to the render distance. So this allows you to lower the simulation distance and possibly free up more resources to have a higher render distance. Now initially this only applied to entities, so if you did something like shoot an arrow off into a chunk that wasn't being simulated, then it would just simply freeze on that chunk border. That's why none of these animals over here are moving from one spot to another, because we're not simulating that area. And the change this time is that blocks and fluids will now be affected by this simulation distance, although I'm not entirely sure what it means. So I've done some testing, and you can see here these entities are actually being pushed around by the water, which is a fluid. And over here you can see that lava is being dispensed from the dispenser, behaving like normal, and this block over here is being pushed. So my suspicion is that this probably relates to things like sugarcane and plants being able to grow. They're probably not going to be affected outside of that simulation distance. Also, there's a whole bunch of foxes in the water here. And it just kind of occurred to me how I could actually test this. We've got bamboo growing here and all the way off into the distance, but somewhere there should be a chunk border where it stops growing if this theory is true. No. That's well over 5 chunks away. And you know what? I just got a feeling this might not be implemented properly yet, kind of like the generation of caves and old terrain earlier in the video, where there was stone. That didn't work properly. Maybe this hasn't either. There is also a note that entity collisions has been optimized. Now, one of the big lag creators in this game is when you have a whole bunch of things next to each other, and it has to do a whole bunch of calculations for how they bump into one another. So any optimizations there is usually a good thing. Now there is an advancement in this game known as adventuring time, where you have to discover every biome. This will now include all of the new mountain biomes. This will also include the underground biomes, dripstone caves and lush caves, as well as some of the newly renamed windswept biomes and the old growth biomes. And for some reason, the deep ocean and the regular ocean were left out of this list. So hopefully now it's a complete list of all of the biomes in the game. Now this snapshot has quite a few bug fixes in it, which to me suggests there may be a shift in focus here as we get closer to the release of 1.18. And most of these are just issues introduced in the more recent snapshots. However, there are a few that are interesting. The inability for foxes to naturally spawn on podzol or on coarse dirt has been resolved. And in last week's snapshot, there was this comical removal of the bedrock on the ceiling of the Nether, replacing it with terrain generation features, which is just so bizarre. And I'll wrap up this video by mentioning that there was a new Minecraft launcher for Bedrock and Java Edition brought onto the Minecraft store as part of the Game Pass update, whatever you want to call it. I have had some serious issues with this launcher, and you might run into some too when it comes to migrating your profiles from the old launcher to the new one. So if you want to know how to do that pain-free, then check out this video on my second channel. It'll be linked on the screen and in the description box below. That's it from me, this snapshot video, and I'll see you next week with another one. Bye bye.